Long before fish had begun to walk upon land and squids had become kids, back in the distant era of mankind, a world war broke out so devastating that humanity was forced to move into a system of underground bunkers. Eventually, a warhead was fired at Antarctica, causing the ice caps to melt and the oceans to flood over the land. And so, humanity's last hope lied in the hands of a scientist who created a cryogenic pod that could freeze someone for 10,000 years. But when met with the moral dilemma of whether to save all of humanity or to save his pet cat Judd, he chose his cat. The Earth then completely flooded over and the age of humanity had come to an end. Thousands of years passed and the sea levels eventually receded. Marine life began to develop intelligence and walk upon land. Most looked questionable, but some had a more human-like appearance, namely the Inklings, who were the evolution of squids, and the Octolings, who were the evolution of octopuses, whatever. Inklings and Octolings start their lives as cute little squidly creatures, and by the time they reach 14, their bodies fully transition into a human form. However, they lack any bones and are made primarily of ink and cartilage, which means that they can easily shapeshift back into a smaller form. But in an ironic twist, they now dissolve whenever they come into contact with water, meaning that they can no longer swim. Something I'm reminded of every time I play online. The Octolings are also a part of a larger branch of species called Octarians, which includes many tentacle-based creatures. It's stated that Octarians are created by cutting the tentacle off from a host, as opposed to Octolings who reproduce by... well, I'm sure the internet has me covered on that one. For a while, relations were good between the Inklings and the Octarians, and they would often get together for non-lethal ink-based battles they called turf wars. It was also around this time that Judd awoke from his 10,000-year-long cryo-sleep, and because no one had ever seen a cat before, he was immediately accepted as a god. Judd had a great eye for analyzing battlefields and would come in handy since he could instantly determine the winning side in turf wars. However, due to a lack of living space, an actual war broke out between the Inklings and the Octarians called the Great Turf War. The Inklings were commanded by Captain Cuttlefish, alongside weapons expert Moses Schellendorf, and their strategist, Judd, forming the squad known as the Squidbeak Splatoon, while the Octarians were led by DJ Octavio alongside a whole bunch of giant death machines. But the Octarians still lost, apparently because squids have more appendages, or maybe because the plug to power the Octarian weapons got pulled somehow. I don't know, there's conflicting reports on this one. After the war, the Octarians were forced to move underground and live in humanity's old bunkers, while the Inklings lived above ground, creating giant cities like one big one called Inkopolis, using the electricity from creatures called Zapfish to power their metropolis, along with the great Zapfish who just casually hangs out in the middle of the city. The Inklings also brought back turf wars, but primarily for younger Inklings, because shooting your friends with high-velocity weapons is exactly what kids should be doing. 100 years has passed since the end of the Great Turf War. Cuttlefish is now a smelly old man, DJ Octavio is now in his octopus form for some unexplained reason, and Judd found a way to clone himself using the cryopod, creating Little Judd, who helps him with judging turf wars and is also secretly planning to kill Judd and take his place. At a youth singing competition, a girl named Pearl had a voice so powerful that she destroyed the venue and was disqualified from the event. The winners were Callie and Mary, the grandchildren of Captain Cuttlefish, who used their success to kickstart their singing career, where they called themselves the Squid Sisters, despite actually being cousins. They were also hired to host Splat Fests, which are friendly competitions that pits two sides against each other over random random topics, with the Inklings competing for a chosen side using turf wars to decide on a victor. While it may seem like good, harmless fun, laws will literally get passed based on the winners of these competitions. Meanwhile, a sad Pearl left to go yodel off into the mountains, where no one could hear her sing. Wah, wah. Meanwhile, deep underground, the Octarians made the best of their situation by lining the walls of their domes with giant LCDs to simulate outside life. But they eventually ran out of power, probably related to the giant LCDs. And so DJ Octavio created brainwashing goggles that he used on the Octolings and sent them above ground to steal all the Zapfish from Inkopolis, using their electricity to power his Octarian weapons, and sucking the great Zapfish inside of his giant turntable death machine. Captain Cuttlefish managed to recruit a young Inkling he dubbed Agent 3, who he sent on a secret mission deep underground to destroy the Octarian weapons and rescue the Zapfish. But halfway through their adventure, Cuttlefish gets kidnapped by Octavio, and the coveted job of tutorial giver is inherited by Agents 1 and 2, who are definitely not just Callie and Mary in disguise. Eventually, Agent 3 reaches DJ Octavio himself, who had all the Octarians assembled to watch his glorious victory over the Inklings. But Callie and Mary arrive and sing Calamari Incantation, a song so bangin' that it snaps all the Octolings out of their mind control, and forces Octavio to do a little dance, giving Agent 3 the opportunity to splat him. The great Zapfish was then returned to Inkopolis, and Octavio was safely stored inside of a snow globe. Some of the freed Octolings opted to move above ground and coexist with the Inklings, but most of the Inklings have never actually seen an Octoling before, and they just assume that they're Inklings but with weird-looking hairstyles. One Octoling, Marina, found Pearl yodeling in the mountains, and the two started a music group called Off the Hook, eventually taking the places of Callie and Mary as the new hosts of Splatfest. At around 2 years after the events of Splatoon 1, Cuttlefish and Agent 3 went on a mission abroad, leaving Octavio completely unattended, giving him the opportunity to break out and create newer, cooler mind-controlled shades, which he placed back onto the Octolings, even managing to get one onto Callie. The Octolings were then sent to steal the great Zapfish, and yeah, we're pretty much back in the same situation. Mary notices that her cousin, her grandpa, Agent 3, and Octavio are all missing, so she searches around Inkopolis, managing to recruit another Inkling she dubbed Agent 4, who she sent on a mission deep underground to destroy the Octarian weapons and yada yada yada, you get the deal. Moses Schellendorf's grandson, young Sheldon, also takes part in the mission, as he gives Agent 4 brand new weapons to use on each level. Oh god, please don't make me use the sniper, Sheldon. I can't aim, Sheldon. Eventually they reach Octavio, and Mary is surprised to see that Callie is under his control. At least until she takes out a sniper rifle and shoots the shades off her head. Young Sheldon then gives Agent 4 a cannon to splat Octavio with, and he's placed back into his safety snow globe. Meanwhile, on their vacation, Cuttlefish and Agent 3 come across a freed Octoling, and Cuttlefish orders Agent 3 to attack them, with their battle causing the three of them to fall below the ground into an underground metro. Cuttlefish and the Octoling end up separated from Agent 3, and they agree to work together and search for a way out, with Cuttlefish giving the Octoling the name Agent 8. Bet you thought they were going to be called Agent 5. Well, octopuses have 8 legs, I think. The two then come across an old telephone that tells them to collect 4 things in order to reach the promised land. It literally says things. I'm not just being quirky. Agent 8 returns with the 4 things, only to find out that they just assembled a giant blender, which the phone tries to blend them with. Until Agent 3 bursts through the ceiling and kicks the blender and falls on their face and gets knocked unconscious. Agent 8 casually leaves through the hole in the ceiling in search for an exit, while Cuttlefish stays behind with Agent 3, who ends up getting mind-controlled by the telephone's slime and forced to tie up Cuttlefish. Yeah, so you're probably wondering what's up with the phone. Well, apparently our old friend, the scientist, managed to create a phone box with all of humanity's knowledge stored inside, so that in the future, when new life listened to the phone box, they would not make the same mistakes that humans made. However, this phone box became sentient, and after witnessing the Inklings' gruesome wars, deemed them unworthy of life, and began blending a bunch of life forms together in an attempt to create new life, but only ended up with a weird goo that can be used to mind control people. I don't know why there's so much mind control in this series. It's kind of worrying. The phone also built a giant statue with a cannon in its mouth that it plans to fire its goo beam at Inkopolis to wipe out all the Inklings that are living in Inkopolis. There's more cities, they just don't show them. Slimy Agent 3 catches up to Agent 8 and confronts them in battle, but gets dunked on and is broken free from the telephone's control. Agent 8 finally reaches the surface and gets picked up by Pearl and Marina, with the squad realizing that the exit that 8 came out of was actually the head of Tartar's giant goo laser statue, which he plans to fire at Inkopolis. However, the entire machine is run on eco-friendly solar-powered panels, so Marina comes up with a plan of dropping a bunch of ink mines on top of it, which Agent 8 will go around detonating, covering the solar panels with ink and lowering the machine's energy output. Then Pearl will counterattack its weakened laser by amplifying her insanely loud voice, pushing back the laser and destroying Tartar and the goo statue. Everyone returns to Inkopolis, and Pearl and Marina host one last Splatfest. Chaos versus Order. Chaos wins because Splatoon players are demons, and that's where we are now, with our current info on Splatoon 3 being that it takes place in some post-apocalyptic Paris. Now, I got one last thing to say, since I think it's going to be relevant to the plot of Splatoon 3, and I've already put too much effort into this video, so I'm just going to be showing gameplay from now on. There exists a tribe of evolved salmon called salmonoids. Salmonoid eggs are super valuable as a source of energy. The salmonoids and the Octarians have a trade agreement, where the Octarians get some of their eggs to power their machines, which is why you see them all over the Octarian bases, and the salmonoids get Octarian weapons, which they can use to protect their golden eggs. Right now, we don't know what golden eggs are used for, but they must be super valuable because a company called Grizzco is recruiting Inklings and Octolings to be sent into Salmonoid territory and reappropriate their golden eggs. And I have a strong feeling that this is all going to be tied together into the plot of Splatoon 3, since in Splatoon 3, there's brown fur that's attached to all the Octarians. What else has brown fur? Bears. Grizzco's mascot is a bear. Bears eat salmon. In Splatoon 3, your companion is a salmonoid. Salmonoids can eat the fur to destroy it. Salmons can eat bears. Am I making any sense here? Whatever. I'm going to be doing a Splatoon 3 video when it comes out, so we can open that can of worms when we get there. And maybe if you enjoyed the video and would like to stick around for that, hit that subscribe button, maybe throw a like in my direction. Help support me and my growing channel. And of course, if you have a game or a series they'd like to see me cover, then leave it in a comment below, and I'll try to get to it when I can. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.